So here we are with Joel, who's from WellPreserved.ca. In case you don't know this website, you should. It's fantastic. But this is your post 9-to-5 job, so you know it's a lot of fun when we see people whose passions almost become their day jobs. Not quite, but almost. So here we are. But Fundamentals of Fermentation.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're calling this class. What does that
Awesome.
mean to you when I say, and this is a beginner's kind of class, so
Right.
what are the fundamentals?
There's two things that I would consider the absolute most important things. One is it's easy. It's easy, it takes very little time. The carrots that we have here was one large carrot that we fermented in less than 3 or 4 minutes. Then you gotta wait a couple weeks, that's ready. The second thing is that it's safe.
Right.
And it's remarkably safe.
I think that's where people get a little nervous.
Mm-hmm.
They say, oh, it's going to go off a little bit, or I'm not sure if I've done it right, or whatever. But
the big fear is botulism that people express.
I didn't want to bring up the B word.
The botulism word, when we talk about food and preserving food, I believe is actually overhyped.
Okay.
The real risk of botulism is canned goods, where we're doing home canning. Yeah. And there is 1 to 2 cases per year in the USA since 2006 related to home canning.
So what are we worried about then?
And we talk about it like it's going to kill us instantly. Right. There is some concern, but if you follow a tested recipe and you want it clean, you're good.
Yeah.
Botulism loves the lack of oxygen.
Yeah.
Fermenting loves oxygen.
Yeah.
So, to my knowledge, and to Sandor Katz, there's actually 0 cases of botulism reported with fermentation.
Kimchi, ginger beer, we're doing those sort of things, sauerkraut tonight. These are classic things that everybody thinks about when they think of fermentation. And these are things you can do at home.
Absolutely. Sauerkraut would be the greatest example of how easy it is. 1 cabbage weighs about 5 pounds. Yep. Mix 5 pounds, break it up into little pieces with your fists, and 3 tablespoons of salt, and you're done.
Why do you think people are so interested in that? I mean, that sounded so simple. Now, have we missed this in a generation of, you know, not doing our own heritage or missing out on all that or something? I mean, have we kind of lost this and all of a sudden there's a renewed interest, or is it just...
There's definitely a renewed interest, and there was a core community that was always very much, never lost touch with this. But we've definitely lost touch with this, and it's so fun now to see people coming around and back to the traditions. I have friends who have whole family traditions of kimchi, who 5 years ago had never made kimchi, and now they're fighting on what is authentic kimchi. Right? Does it have to have daikon? Does it have to have fish sauce?
Yes.
And those little cultural nuances that could be different region to region, town to town.
But now that we throw in the Canadian content, depending on what your background is, maybe you grew up with sauerkraut, not kimchi, so you throw a little twist in there, so it really takes it into different levels too, and flavor principles. But I mean, it's fun. I mean, this smells wonderful. We've cut out all the open jars here, and it smells terrific. So, where do you think it goes from here? So you're teaching all these people how to do it at home, and you're teaching some chefs too who are interested. So what's the next level? This is 1.0. So where's the next 2.0 of fermentation, do you think?
What's so awesome about fermentation is because there's lots of oxygen, and because you don't have that fear of botulism, you don't have to worry about following a tested recipe. So where does it go from here? It goes where we imagine it will go.
Right.
We tonight are actually showing a sauce that we've never made before. We're showing a hot sauce that we fermented using dry peppers and whey.
Oh.
And I haven't seen the technique out there. I'm sure somebody's done it somewhere.
Yeah.
But the realistic answer to that question is it goes wherever we want to go with it. I hope we go way back.
What's your favorite thing to do?
Oh, any of it.
All of it? what do you achieve? What are you trying to perfect at home?
Different.
Like, do you think bubbling in jars? No, I always think bubbling in jars. That's not the right thing to say. But do you have lots of different things on your shelves at home?
Oh, we have hot sauces that are a year old, sitting and fermenting on the shelf under air pressure. We have some pretty stuff that I have kind of on a special shelf like that. And a different way to answer that question is I also have this list of things I want to do.
Yes.
And
so what would that be?
Fish sauce.
Fish sauce?
Oh, 0 question. I want to ferment fish.
Wow.
Yeah, and we're talking to friends who own a fish store, a sustainable fish store.
Right.
And we're talking about creating fish sauce. And the problem is that we can't agree whose house gets to keep it. Because I think it'll get a rather...
It'll have a pungent, pungent aroma. Is that what we're trying to say? What kind of fish would you use?
Typically an anchovy or sardine, a small fish that you could use. Although a lot of different fish would work. I'd stay away from oily. Right. And when you're fermenting fish and meat, and I've done a bit of both, there does become a fear of that B word that we don't talk about. So that has a bit more safety involved with it. But for years, you know, I bought a crock pot off a guy who had listed it on Kijiji or one of those sites. And it said it used to be used for fermenting meat.
Oh.
And I thought he was clueless.
Yeah.
And I called him up and I picked up this crock. And it was his mother's crock that he was getting rid of, no longer using. And when he was a child in Peterborough on the farm, they used to shoot deer. They would butcher it at the farm, and they would salt brine it and let it sit in the cold cellar in crocks over the winter because they didn't have enough cold cellar. And we've lost touch with this stuff.
That makes perfect sense, doesn't it?
We didn't have a fridge 100 years ago.
No, and our basements are too warm now. They're not cold rooms anymore, so you have to create that space. So, I mean, people can do these at home. You haven't brought much equipment. I mean, it's pretty straightforward.
You could arguably use nothing at all. I like to use a knife and salt.
Yeah, and that's it. And some good jars and
there are
scales, and away we go.
There are ways to ferment. You don't need a scale. I like to do a scale so it's repeatable, so I can measure it. But that's purely an option. And truthfully, really, a knife, salt, and some people make sauerkraut even without salt.
Well, I'm looking forward to this. So thank you.
Likewise.
Let's get going.
Awesome. Thank you.